Welcome to While We Were Distracted, the podcast where we explore topics that often get overshadowed in the rush of daily life.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're tackling a topic that I think a lot of you are curious about, the connection between brain imaging and anger issues.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
It really is. We found this incredible YouTube clip from the Dr. Phil show. You know Dr.
Oh,
Phil?
yeah, for sure.
Well, he had this guest named Brandon who really struggled with anxiety, fear, and anger.
Hmm.
And Brendan wanted to understand what was going on, so they brought in this top neuroradiologist, Dr. Bradley Jaber, to take a look.
And using brain imaging.
Exactly. They did a 3T MRI on Brandon, which is like the gold standard these days. It gives you this incredibly detailed picture of the brain, not just what it looks like, but how it's actually functioning.
It's pretty amazing what we can see now.
Right. And here's where things get really interesting. So Brandon was totally convinced, adamant, that he'd never had a serious head injury.
Okay, but
But when Dr. Jaber saw the scans, his reaction was like, whoa, hold on a second.
that's usually a sign something's up.
It definitely was. Turns out the scans showed something called gliosis in Brendan's brain.
Gliosis, that's basically scar tissue in the brain, right?
Exactly. And it can happen after an injury, even if it's not like a major concussion or anything.
You know, it's kind of like if you stub your toe really hard, you might not remember it later, but a little scar might form.
Ah, okay, I see. So even little bumps and knocks can leave these tiny scars in your brain.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that even though you might not remember the injury, those scars can still affect how your brain works.
Wow, that's kind of freaky. And in Brendan's case, it gets even crazier. Dr. Jabor found 7 distinct areas of gliosis, mainly in his right frontal lobe.
7. That's a lot.
It is, right. And that's the part of your brain that's all about controlling your emotions, making decisions, impulses, all that stuff.
So damage in that area, especially on the right side, it's been linked to anger management issues.
It's like those scars are messing with his brain's ability to keep his anger in check.
Right. They're interfering with the normal, healthy functioning of that part of the brain, and that can definitely contribute to problems with anger.
That's so wild. But hold on, if you can't even remember these injuries, how do you know for sure that's what's causing the anger problems?
Well, that's a great question. It's important to remember that it's rarely just one thing. Gliosis is a big clue, but other things can also play a role. Like, think about genetics. Your genes can influence your temperament and how you react to stress.
Right, that makes sense.
And then there's your environment. If you grew up in a chaotic or stressful environment, that can definitely have an impact on your emotional development. And we can't forget about things like past trauma, whether it's physical or emotional. All of these things can contribute to anger issues.
So it's really this complex mix of nature and nurture.
Absolutely.
But still, going back to Brandon's case, Dr. Jabor suggested that he and his family try to figure out if there were any past incidents where he might have hit his head, right?
Yeah, he did. And that's smart because even if it seems insignificant, that information can be really helpful in understanding the full picture.
So basically, even though the brain imaging is super important, it's not the whole story.
Right. It's a crucial piece of the puzzle, but we need to consider all the other pieces too. You know, the person's history, their environment, their genetics, everything.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I mean, I never realized a forgotten injury could have such a lasting impact on someone's life. It
Wow.
really makes you think about all those little bumps and bruises we get along those.
It does, doesn't it?
So we've learned that advanced brain imaging, like the 3T MRI, can reveal things like gliosis, which can be a sign of past trauma. And we've seen how damage to the frontal lobe, especially on the right side, can play a role in anger issues.
And we also talked about how it's not always straightforward. There are so many different factors that can contribute to anger, both biological and environmental.
And that brings us to a really interesting question for everyone listening. If gliosis can affect things like anger and impulse control, what other hidden factors might be influencing our behavior? And how can a deeper understanding of the brain help us develop better treatments and support for people struggling with these issues?
It's really mind-blowing to think about.
It is. We've only scratched the surface here, but hopefully this deep dive has given you some food for thought. Keep those brains buzzing, and we'll catch you next time.
See you then.
If you enjoyed this episode of While We Were Distracted, be sure to watch the video that inspired it. Don't forget to like and subscribe for the next episode on While We Were Distracted.